Have the Badgers solved their quarterback issue this offseason? Let's talk about it, plus grade the position. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Harings. Appreciate you guys jumping in. We got Justin over there from the Bucky Report. Today, we are talking about, did the Badgers solve their quarterback issues? We're talking about the quarterback room, who left, who's here, grading it for this year and for the future. A lot to come up with as with superlatives as well. So let's start here. Justin, did the Badgers solve their quarterback issue this offseason by bringing in Daniel Neal and Billy Edwards Jr.?
Well, I think they did with bringing in Billy Edwards. When we look at what we had the last 2 years, just due to injuries, everything's going to be a step up from what we've seen. Competent quarterback play would be a massive upgrade. Edwards is capable of giving you competent quarterback play. I have grown on him since my tirade and meltdown back when we initially were looking at him as a guy. There's some things to like about him. But I think he's capable of, at a minimum, running this offense and running it effectively. The question will be, how much playmaker does he have in him?
Yeah, I would say, I agree with you, by the way. They got better. I don't know if getting better from where you were means you solved it. I think they got better, but I don't know if they've solved it. I don't know if you really solve this thing until you get a guy that you feel can elevate the program. Like, I don't know if Billy Edwards can elevate the program. I think he gets you to solid, but until you elevate it at that spot, I don't know if you've solved the quarterback problem.
What do you think he is as a grade? Like an A grade?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get to grades more at the end, but I'll tell you right now, I think he's like a C plus B minus.
Okay. I would say he's a D.
I think there's a and I say that in not like a bad way. I think people will hear a C plus and think a bad way. Like, we were like an F last year.
Yeah.
Right. So absolutely. I was an F student in high school. Like, getting to C minus would have been C plus would have been big for me.
When I say B, I think of a guy who is capable of occasionally winning you a game, like going out there and making enough plays to win you a game. Now, do I think he can do that against like an Ohio State? Probably not. But do I think he can do it against some of the B-list teams that we have on our schedule this year? Absolutely. Like, can he put together a big game against Minnesota and Iowa? Yeah, I think he can definitely do that. So I think that this is a massive upgrading compared to that. Because, like, we learned last year that Locke was incapable of being able to make positive plays against those types of teams. He could beat up on the teams that we physically had a better roster than, but he was not capable of playing with anybody that had kind of a pulse. And that's the big deal in this case.
Yeah, and even in some of those games, he made mistakes. He would throw picks, and we were just physically better. Yeah, I just think I think he's, at the word of his offseason, I think he's solid. I think he gets us to solid. And going from where you were to solid is a big deal. But I don't think that's good enough for me to say, yeah, I think we fixed it. Right? I think one of the things I learned when I looked at Van Dyke and Mordecai and some of these other guys and other transfer guys that we were in on that we haven't gotten is there's a reason fifth-year seniors are still in college as quarterbacks. And it's because inherently there's some flaws there, that whether it's decision-making, which I think there is some issues there with Billy Edwards, whether it's physical tools, whatever it is, there's a reason he's still in college. And the reason is he's not an elite quarterback. So that's a high bar. I don't know if Wisconsin, Russell Wilson, since the last time you've been there. But I do think we're better. Yeah, that's it. Other than draft day, that one cat that we had at the Browns.
Yeah, but nobody went to his birthday party.
Nobody went to his birthday party. He wasn't a leader. He didn't have grit. So I think we're better. I don't think we solved the spot, though. I think we put in our Band-Aid on it, and we're hoping going forward we can still find the solution. Mm-hmm. But let me ask you this. So really quickly, we're going to go over additions, subtractions. I'm going to ask you, what's the quarterback you're saddest didn't work out? In this fickle era, what's the one guy you look back at? You're like, man, I wish that guy would have worked out. So this offseason, the Badgers added Billy Edwards Jr., Daniel Neal, Carter Smith. You still have Milos Spasovic on the roster. You lost Tyler Van Dyke, Mabry Mettoyer, Cole LaCrue, and Braden Locke this offseason, an offseason of change. Go back to the first offseason here? I might just start there. Who are those 4 guys leaving? Is it? I mean, it's almost certainly
It's
Mabry.
Mordecai. I would have liked to see a healthy Mordecai. Honestly, in a decent offensive system, probably would have helped him too. Like, I just don't think. I realize we're after the fact now, but like, there's so much to dislike about what we saw offensively with what was there.
Mm-hmm.
That I look at it now and I'm like, how would Mordecai have played in Grimes' offense? I actually think he would have been pretty effective in it.
Doesn't it feel like
mobile? And I think that this style of offense would have done a great job in terms of simplifying his reads.
I think that's a great one. I was just going to tee you up a little bit more. Doesn't it feel like, looking back at him through 2020 vision, now knowing what we know about Longo, now knowing what we know about some of the issues at skill positions, some of the drops, it really does feel like Mordecai had more under the hood, and we just couldn't unlock it.
Mm-hmm. And this team, like, I don't want to put it all on Longo. He deserves a sizable portion of the blame. But this roster, and people will continue to, for whatever reason, paint it like Fickle came into this great situation. I'm sorry, it just wasn't the case. Like, this roster lacked high-end talent. And it still does. Like, there's a reason why the guys we're seeing that are going into the draft are guys who are most likely to be like 4th or 5th rounders. The 2 best players that were on that roster in Chris last season left and went to the NFL in Benton and Herbig. Like, there was no 2 guys that were jumping into those spots to be NFL caliber players.
And I think we knew it. I just got glossed over a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Better backup heading into the season, last year with Braden Locke or this year with Danny O'Neill?
I think that Danny O'Neill's floor is Braden Locke. I think he's got more mobility. I think he's got a little more swagger to him. I actually made the comment on the Discord a while back that this is probably the most swagger-filled quarterback room Wisconsin has ever had. I can't remember when you had 3 guys who kind of look like they have that little bit of chip on their shoulder, a little bit of cockiness to them. Mm-hmm. And I'm here for it. Like, how long has it been since we've had a guy that has a little bit of attitude on the field at that position? Even when you had Russell Wilson, he didn't really have attitude.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Bart Houston had some swagger. I'll tell you that. Like, for better and worse.
That's true. But Bart Houston, I don't know if he knew where he was half the time.
He had some swagger.
He was amazing.
Yeah. No, I think they're better. I think Danny O'Neill has a little bit – he's like Braden Locke, but I think he's got a little more athletic ability, like just a little bit more, similar size. I think they're in a similar tier. Like, if you were to tier them out, I think one's maybe like a B- backup, the other's a C+ type. Like, let's be honest, you're not going to have an elite guy as your number 2 ready to go at all times. So
you don't have Alabama or Ohio State's room.
No, and very few teams do. I feel better about this backup this year, and I feel kind of similar about Edwards as I did with Tyler Van Dyke. Again, Tyler Van Dyke just got hurt early too, and he was not in a great system either. And I don't know if we really fully got what we expected to see there. And I don't know how to judge him, really, to be completely honest.
We just saw everything that was a positive about him when his time in Miami just never showed up here. And he reduced the negatives for the first couple games. But like, we didn't see any of the upside that we were expecting to see. Like, we expected him to be a very boom-bust quarterback, and we really got neither. And that, to me, I have to look at that and be like, when I'm seeing players not show what they've previously shown from a talent level, that speaks to coaching to me and something they're being told to play a certain way.
Yep. It felt like Longo put the clamps on it a little bit, to be honest. Now, TVD still missed some plays, but I think if he had played the entire year, people look back and say, okay, he was all right. He was an okay-ish placeholder. Now we got to get better. I think Edwards.
We're probably a bowl team.
Yeah, I think so.
And maybe 7 wins.
Yeah, 6, 7. It's still an ugly year, but it's a better ugly.
Yeah, the fan base would be far more willing to accept it than where we're at. Like, there were things that were fatal flaws that just weren't going to be fixed, and we'll see what happens with this defensive line. I personally continue to say that I do feel much better about the run defense, I mean, you legitimately, you're too deep. You have between 5 and 6 guys that are going to be 300 plus now.
Yeah.
And last year you had 0.
Yeah, Brady Collins is excited about the size. I think they're going to be better there. Can they rush the passer? That's going to be
that will be the question. You have some guys that I think are capable of showing a little disruption on the inside, and Suggs, and I think Peterson has a little bit to him too. I don't know who on the edge is going to be there because Riger obviously is just got surgery. We have no idea what to expect. I would say right now, don't expect anything from him, and if you get it, then great.
I agree. That's exactly where I'm at with Riger. By the way, this all works in concert. You get more pass rush, you get more disruptive plays. It makes it easier on your quarterback. He doesn't have to do as much either. He can get more comfortable. You can lean on the run game more. This all works together. All right, we're going to take a quick break there, come back, talk about superlatives. Which quarterback in this room has the highest NFL upside? It's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our new friends of the show over at Supply House. A lot of people that watch this, handy people that are doing their own work, get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades over at Supply House. Whether you're plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources, the latest product info to help you get the job done correctly. Plus, with a complete inventory over 200,000 parts, that's craziness. Over 400 top brands, find exactly what you need delivered fast, coast to coast. If you need help with your order, Supply House is going to offer expert support, and you're going to talk to a person every single time. None of the AI nonsense. You'll talk to a real, living, carbon-based life form. And trade pros looking for an extra advantage. Their free Trade Master program gives you exclusive perks, dedicated phone line, free shipping, discounts on every order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use the promo code STACHTech5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Let's jump back into this. Let's talk some superlatives with this quarterback room. I'm really excited to get into this one because, I don't know, we haven't discussed which way you're going on any of these. So, NFL upside.
I would say right now, probably Billy Edwards. I think the arm translates really well. I need to see more Carter Smith before I can make that judgment because, there's going to be some growth from him, but I need to see the passing. I think is where we thought he was a little bit more raw, and we need to see how high end he can be on that regard. I think Edwards. There is a non-zero chance that Edwards shows enough to get drafted. I'm not saying that that's what he's going to do this year, but there are tools there. He's got an NFL arm. He's mobile. He's actually throws with quite a bit of touch at times, which is something that Wisconsin hasn't really had a ton of to begin with either. So there's a lot of things there that you look at with him, and there's definitely some upside. Now we need to see what Grimes can do with him now that he's got a hold of him.
Yeah, I agree completely. I didn't know if you'd go with Carter Smith, the young guy, the four-star upside, or Billy Edwards. I think Edwards has been masked in a really bad system behind a bad offensive line without a lot of talent. Listen, what's the difference between him and Howard at Ohio State, honestly? If you put Billy Edwards on that offense and you switched Howard over to Maryland, I'm just telling you right now.
I don't think the gap's big.
I don't think it's a gigantic gap. Now, Howard isn't.
We saw Howard at the combine.
I was going to say, not having the greatest combine, but still a guy that's going to make it to the league. Howard is going to get a shot somewhere. Listen, Edwards checks a lot of boxes. He's physical enough. He's big enough. He's mobile enough. I'm telling you right now, leadership, people rave about him. You can dismiss that what you want. I'm telling you, not everybody was like that with Tyler Van Dyke. More people were like that with Tanner Mordecai. And his arm is good enough. It's not an elite physical package, but you can squint and see a guy.
A- B+ arm. It's not a rocket launcher, but there's plenty of RPMs there.
I think you can squint to see a guy who could be in a UDFA and find his way into a practice squad and hang around for a little bit. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think it's Billy Edwards. Biggest reason for excitement this year? Maybe outside of what we already talked about with Billy Edwards.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I'm looking forward to, and this is a big one that we talked about, Rajiv and I talked about on our show last night. The player I'm most looking forward to hearing something positive on, I'm really looking forward to hopefully hearing this, is hearing that Carter is getting his feet wet and showing growth to be a guy that could potentially start pushing next year. And that's what I'm hopeful for from him as a young quarterback, come in and hopefully hit the ground running and just show that it's not too much for him. because a lot of guys it is. Like, it would be amazing if he could somehow be ready to come in and compete, in spring to push for the potential starting job. Do I think he's going to be ready for that? At this point, I don't want to put that kind of pressure on a kid because he's not a super polished kid at this point yet. But I will say this, he is gritty and he's a competitor. And I could see him if mentally it comes together, being a guy who just gets it done.
I would say he could push for the 2. Like, that would be – he's definitely not going to push Billy. Billy's going to be the guy. Yeah. But if he can come in and push for the 2, I think Badger fans should be super excited about it. My reason for upside, it's kind of similar. It's Carter Smith, but it's more just some physical tools, like continuing to add some actual physical skill set in there, that the type that good offenses have, the type that keep defensive coordinators up at night. Carter Smith is going to be the type of guy who could, if he hits, he's going to drive people nuts because he's going to be mobile, tough. He's going to make throws. He's going to be a bit of a playmaker. I think Billy Edwards has some of that. It's just a better physical room. And I think going forward, it encourages me that that's the trend that they're shooting for, I think.
Well, you and I talked before coming on the show. The quarterbacks that they're looking at are all plus athletes. Yeah, every single one of them.
And they have size and they have an arm. I agree. Biggest reason for worry, I'll start off on this one. For me, it's the fact that you're, once again, just kind of going back to the portal well, and that you still haven't been able to find the long-term fit. And you're just, at some point, they brought in Evers, younger guy, Locke, younger guy, Mabry, younger guy, LaCrue, younger guy. And I know LaCrue is kind of part of a previous regime and into this one, but still, eventually you got to develop one of the younger guys. And otherwise, this is not going to work. So that would be my biggest worry, is just the continued reliance on one-year portal additions at that quarterback spot.
I will say this. I trust Grimes a lot more to actually develop somebody than I did long ago. I did not. I can't speak for anybody else. I did not love his evaluations for high school quarterbacks. You and I talked about it. Like, I wasn't in love with any of the guys other than Mabry, who I thought had physical tools, but I never at any point thought that he was a sure thing. But I love the upside with the tool set that he had. He is now, unrealized potential. He still has a chance to be a decent quarterback. The other guys, I felt like there was very limited upside with. The guys that we're looking at now, I absolutely feel like there's things that you can piece together a guy, if he's not an elite thrower, for them to still be a functional quality quarterback without having to be able to throw the ball all over the field. And that's what I like about Grimes' offense. That's what I like about what they're targeting for skill set. And that's what I like about this quarterback room, is I think that they're going to be able to find plays that they can make with this group of guys that they can be consistent with.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's well said. All right, let's run quickly through Billy Edwards' grades. Let's give him some letter grades on a couple of categories and just kind of our rough thoughts. Again, we're going to learn way more about Billy Edwards as spring, as summer, as fall, as the season happens. But let's start with arm strength. How would you grade Billy Edwards Jr. arm strength? I gave him a B+ on arm strength.
I think that's where I would put him too. I don't think he's got a absolute cannon, but it's an above average college arm.
Yep, I agree. You can see throws to hashes. You can see throws with velocity. But it's not a howitzer. It's not an elite NFL arm. Accuracy.
I'd probably have him at B-.
Yeah, I went between C+ and B-. I do think it's hard to tell when you watch Maryland because he's under duress a lot, and even on throws
that'll be interesting when he can keep his footwork this year, seeing how he plays. But he's really good throwing off platform. Like, for a guy who is under duress, he does a nice job of keeping touch. I saw him make quite a few throws off his back foot, which were incredibly accurate for a guy that is throwing that way, because normally when you can't step into a throw, the ball has a tendency to rise on you a little bit. Kind of your accuracy tends to get a little all over the place. He's athletic. You can tell he's athletic because he can keep his accuracy when he's in those situations. And guys who are stiffs can't do that.
Well, that leads us into the next one. Athleticism, mobility. I went B+ on this one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's not a guy who's a super freak athlete where he's going to be running all over the place, but he's definitely got more than enough to be a threat.
And there's multiple elements to this too, right? You can be mobile and really quick, but also be 5'8" and 164. Yeah. I mean, he's a 6'4", 200+ physical runner. I mean, on 3rd and 1, like if he has to, he's going to put the shoulder into you and get a first down.
Well, so it's one of those things, and we talked about it as a plus or minus potentially with Carter Smith, and we looked at the release and people. I know you weren't. It's kind of funky. You looked at it, and I'm like, it's just a baseball arm. But when I look at that, I don't necessarily view that as a negative. You have a little bit of that with Edwards too. He's kind of got that lower snap through delivery that looks like he's got like a whip action with it, and I think that is more fluid to me. I like seeing a quarterback that throws with that because it's normally quick, and they normally don't have to have the long, elongated delivery style to actually throw the football. They can just kind of snap it out.
You're talking about the stave, the wind up.
Yeah, the over the top.
They would put a sundial on that thing.
Oh my god.
Last one here, we got intangibles. This one's hard. This one's hard because we don't know Billy Edwards, but I can tell you, from what people in the program that I talked to, coaches included, they love him. This is Tanner Mordecai vibes. I think this is a leader at that spot. I'll say that.
The one thing I will say is watching him on the field playing for Maryland, you could see the swagger. And guys follow the swagger. As a guy who played baseball myself all the way up and through my early 20s, those are the guys you like hanging around with, and those are the guys you want to play with because the attitude is there, and they want to go after and they want to compete. And that's the type of guy that is. That's why I liked when we were talking about the swagger and kind of attitude in the room. I'm like, those are the guys that you want to follow and be like, yeah, let's get into this. Those are the guys that, like, you talk about a guy like Brett Favre back in the day for the Packers, who would be sitting there like smacking defensive linemen on the head and stuff like that. Like, you want to see a little bit of that fiery kind of attitude. And that's what Billy Edwards had, some of that. Like, that's what I want to see for my quarterback, is a guy who looks like he's going to go out there and kind of leave it all out on the field. And Carter Smith, you watch his high school film, same way. He's the guy who was absolutely like, I'm going to kill myself. We're going to win this game.
Yeah, he has that in spades. And the one thing with Billy Edwards that can backfire, like the dude he took some shots at Maryland that he does not need to take.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to be careful.
Smart. Yeah, pick your spots because the backup is not at your level. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break there, get back, and we're going to grade the position for this year and for the future as we talk about the quarterback spot heading into spring football. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show. Also, a quick second to say thank you for tuning in to Locked On Badgers. All right, let's go here. Grade the position for this year.
I think I give it a B-.
I'm right there too. That's exactly where I'm at, B-, which is good. Like, that's a good, solid.
Yeah. It's an above average room in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm. I think that's super fair. Billy Edwards Jr., I think, is a slightly above average, starting-ish quality quarterback. And you have a backup that has started an entire year of pro football or college football. I think you're okay here.
Yeah, I think the ecosystem that he's coming into, and like we talked last year about Van Dyke potentially being a top 5 quarterback in the league if things went right. I feel better about Billy Edwards being able to do that, having watched his athleticism and his ability to throw the football, than I did about Van Dyke. I just think that he's a more fluid athlete. I think he's a guy that in this offense, I think Grimes is going to be able to find him some easy reads and easy plays, and that's going to make it a lot simpler. And I just don't think that we've seen the best of him because of the horrific system that he was in at Maryland. It was just not a good quarterback conducive system. They couldn't run the football. They had zero offensive line play. So when the defense is just pinning their ears and coming after you and playing the pass, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. He did have Felton at receiver, but and that's a fair point that people have brought up. Like, he did have a higher level receiver at Maryland than he's going to have at Wisconsin. But if you tell a quarterback, you can have this one high level receiver that's better than anything you're going to have at Wisconsin, or you can have a 5-man offensive line that's better. Like, the line, I'm just telling you, the line is more important, I think. And I actually think this receiver room is going to be interesting. It's going to be okay-ish. Koziel is going to help. I think he can run the ball. So
I think it's a C+, B-.
Yeah, I agree. B-. Let's go future grade. So now we're looking 2 or 3 years down the road, which is always hard in this era of college football. But to me, it's like a C-. Like, you have no established guy. You have a high upside guy.
I really need to see what the 26 quarterback is going to be. That will heavily influence my grade on this. But it's basically Carter or bust, because not to bag on Danny O'Neil, but I just don't see the upside from him in terms of, I don't think the arm is necessarily a top shelf arm. He's a little undersized. He's more mobile than Locke. And we'll see if he's just kind of has a better feel for playing the position. But I think there's some limitations there that scare me a little bit. Now, he might be able to play okay in the offense simply because if the offensive line comes together the way we think it's going to over the next couple of years, I think he's going to have it. The quarterback position is not going to have to do a lot to be productive, simply because I think the running game is going to really take off the next couple of years.
I think you're on with I'm on a similar path with you with O'Neal. I think if you look at baseball parlance, he's like a number 4 starter. Yeah. I think you feel a little better going into
Jeff Supan of college quarterback.
Jeff Supan's a great one. I mean, there's a bunch of them, right? And every year they all shift out. I think you feel better every year going into the season with a Danny O'Neal on your roster because you feel a little more prepared in case of injury. But you don't feel better about the future with a Danny O'Neal because I don't think he's the type of guy that you want to count on to be your starter. It's Carter Smith or bust. And in a year, if we get good reports from Carter Smith, it seems like he's taking a big step. He's fighting for that number 2 spot. Coaches are excited about him. Then you suddenly feel quite a bit better about the future of that spot. But right now, I think it's just a big, And you like the tools of Carter. But all right, let's finish up here. One quarterback in the 26 class we talked about. We each have a couple that we talked about before the show that you are highest on. Like if they land this dude, you feel pretty good about the 26 class.
It's Ryan Hopkins, and I don't think it's close for me. It would have been Bo Bentley. He turned into a freak show, and now he's gone. But Bo Bentley, to be honest, was a mid-90s composite type quarterback that was, for whatever reason, the ratings hadn't caught up to him yet. Like his film is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. We talked about
Ryan Hopkins is my guy. Legit speed, like track speed at the quarterback position. When I looked at the quarterbacks, there are a couple of things that stood out to me watching his film. Number one, I like that the first thing I see him do is he does take 2 to 3 beats to survey the field and see if it's there before ever breaking the pocket. Like he consistently looks like he's going through his progressions. Number two, when he does throw the football, and he normally he does a pretty good job of throwing it with anticipation. I made this comment in the Discord earlier tonight. We talk baseball parlance again. It's command and it's accuracy. He's got both. He puts the ball in the strike zone, and he also puts the ball where it's not put in harm's way. He does a really good job of throwing back shoulder. He does a really good job of throwing to the sideline rather than putting the ball in play on the inside where the defender can make a play on the ball. And on his high school film, there were very few throws that I looked at that had arm arrogance, where you look at a guy where he throws a ball that will never play at the college level because a defender is going to be ball hawking that and it's getting picked every time.
I just imagine his dad is clipping those from the highlight clip. Arm arrogance. Nope. But no, I agree. Hopkins is a stud. I like the speed, the frame. I like the delivery. There's a couple of guys. Again, you compare him to think of some of the quarterbacks Longo was in this class before we shifted over Teddy Gerard, a mock, right? Hopkins has way more athletic skill, way more speed.
I would say he is the best athlete that we've potentially going to get at quarterback since. If you're not going back to Russell Wilson, it's DJ Gillens.
Yeah, McAvoy, if you count him. Him, whatever.
He's a better passer already than what McAvoy was.
You're a better passer than McAvoy. Listen, incredible free safety and major X factor weapon.
Incredible athlete. Throwing was not his forte.
Not the forte of Tanner McAvoy. I like Hopkins. Falzone, I like too. We talked about him. He's a high upside lottery pick. A little bigger frame, a little better arm, can still run the ball.
So
I'm not going to hate that one if that's what they end up with.
So my frustration with him and watching his film is I realize it's a highlight film, but the thing that bothered me, number one, he breaks the pocket super early a lot, but it also looks to me like he does not throw the football until he sees somebody open, which to me shows a lack of coverage recognition, and he's looking for open guys rather than this is where I'm supposed to be going based off what I'm seeing, because this guy's going to break open the second he makes his move. And that lack of anticipation is a problem. You have to have that at the college level if you want to play at a high level.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong at that. I look at sometimes high school quarterbacks are just so gifted that they haven't had to develop that skill set. And you see that even, a guy, even up into the professional level, you see quarterbacks who still haven't had to develop necessarily that part of their game as much because they're just so physically gifted. I think he's one of those guys who could be so physically gifted it doesn't matter as much.
And by all means, he's probably got the best skill set of any of the quarterbacks that were in. And I include Bo Bentley in that. Like, if we're talking just straight physical tools, Falzone is off the charts. The mental side of it is going to have to catch up.
Yep, I agree there. Great show, man. He is Justin over at the Bucky Report. I am Ryan Harings, Locked On Badgers. Let us know your grades for this year's quarterback room and for the future in the comments on Wisconsin. When you're done, go check out Locked On Big Ten. All the biggest stories from conference realignment to NIL is all over there on that Locked On Big Ten channel. Wrapping up there, we will talk tomorrow.